Welcome to Test Troop, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing. In this video, we will focus more on Postman variables. We will understand the variables in Postman. This includes introduction to variables, what are variables in Postman, why they are essential in API testing, the overview of different types of variables in Postman, global variable, environment variable, collection variable, local variable, dynamic variables, things like that. How to set and get a variables, how to create a variable, and how to retrieve the value of the variable, and understand the scope of the variables. What are variables? In my earlier video, when I introduced JavaScripting, I briefly talked about variable. I am going to reiterate the same here. The variable is a container or a storage location in a memory to hold the data. And the variable is always is labeled with the name or it is attached to a name, and using the variable name you can retrieve the value that is stored in the variable. The variables are the one whose value can change during the program execution. Why the variables are used? The way variables are used to reuse the values, right? Let us consider an example. In the course of Trello API, we did a lot of exercises, starting with creating a board, adding the list, adding the cards to the list, etc., right? And if you see in all these requests, the base URL is the same, right? So we stored the base URL in a variable and used this variable across the different requests. That is the one part. Second part is about the maintainability, right? So let us assume that this Trello API is going to change his base URL. In that case, if you would have created 100 requests as a part of our testing, so you have to go to each and every request and change its values if you have not used the variables. But in case if you used variables such as a collection variable, you can go to the variable section and just change this, just replace the old value with a new value. That is how it will be helpful for in case of maintainability. Third thing is flexibility across the environment. Variables makes easier to switch between the different environments. Maybe uh, in your organization you have a different environment for testing. It may be dev environment, test environment, acceptance environment, and production environment. By allowing environment specific values like the base URLs or the tokens, we can easily swap in and out without modifying the request. This is why basically the variables are used. In this video, we will explore the various types of variables used in Postman, including local variables, collection variables, environment variables, global variables, and dynamic variables. We will dive into each type in detail with practical examples and hands-on exercises to help you understand how to effectively use them in your API testing. Local variables are the temporary variables that are very specific to a single request or a script execution. So they cannot be accessible outside this request or outside of the script. It may be a pre-request script or an post-response script or a function that you write, right? The scope is only limited to a function within that function. When you come out of that function, you cannot access these variables. As I told, the scope is only available within a request where it is basically defined. They do not persist after the request is completed. Local variables are used whenever you want to perform certain kind of a calculation or certain kind of a logic. Then you can use a local variable within a function or within a script. A simple example could be, let us think you got a response from a server which has got an array of JSON objects, and each JSON object has got a property called as a name. And if you want to count number of occurrences of a names within an array of JSON object, then uh, you can take a variable as a count. Then you can iterate over these JSON objects. Whenever you encounter the property name, you can increment the counts. Okay, let us see how to use local variables in Postman. Let us go to Postman and let's go to the script section. Here where basically we can write a JavaScript either at pre-request or post response. And in JavaScript we declare a variable using the keyword let, and the variable name I'll give my name and a value as test true. Then let's use console.log to print the variable, and before that let's clear the console dot clear. Let's execute the script. You see the value is printed here. Okay, let's try to put this part of the code inside the block. You can put it inside the block using the flower brackets, and let's try to do the same thing outside of this block. You can see an error from the JavaScript telling that my name is not defined. That means this variable is local to the block where it is defined, and the scope of this variable is limited to the block where it is defined. So the local variables are temporary variables, and their scope is limited to a block or a script or a function where they are defined. So hope you understood this, understood the concept of local variable. Okay, if I try to put this particular statement outside of this block and try to execute now, and you see the test troop is printed 2 times. That means the the variable is outside the block, so the scope is limited to the entire script section. So this is defined in the post response, but I cannot go to pre-request and try to use that variable. Then JavaScript will give me an error telling that it is not defined. This is how basically we use the local variable. They are basically used as a temporary variable in calculations or in writing some kind of an logic. So another type of variable in Postman are the collection variables. The collection variables are defined within the collection. In our previous example, we had created two collections. One is called as user management collection and another one is a Trello API collections. So if you define a variable within the Trello collection, you cannot use them in the user management collection. The scope is limited to the collection where it is being defined. The use case is when you want to share the variables within the request of the same collection and keep them isolated from the other collection. In such cases, the collection variables are used. Let us go to Postman and do some hands-on with the collection variables. Let us go to the Postman and let us go to the user management API collection and try to get the variable, whatever the collection variables that we have stored it. And we have stored 3 variables. Let us take the variable user ID. Let us copy this and let's go to the first request and go to the pre-request section and try to write a small small JavaScript to get the collection variable. How do we get a collection variable? It is using pm dot collection variable dot get. Right, we can pass the key as the name of the variable, and let's try to print this. Before that, we'll clear the console. Console.clear. Then we can print console.log, this one. And if you remember, the value was 2 here, right? Let us save this and try to execute. So you see the value 2 is displayed, right? So first, since it is in a pre-request section, first the First, this part of the script will be executed, then the request is made, right? So let us use the same snippet code in the other request as well, right? In the other request, let us go to the script body, try to use it in a post response now. Now the request will be made, so we will clear this. Request will be made, then basically, okay, then basically it will be, we will clear it in pre-request and we will try to execute it in a post request. So it will clear the console first, then the request is made, then this will print this value, right? See, this is how this sequence is working. So wherever I use within the particular collection, this variable value is, we can get this variable value. We can that means we can use this variable anywhere within the collection. Okay, let us go to the Trello API where this particular variable is not defined. Let's make sure that this variable is not defined. If you can come to variable, there is no user ID defined anywhere. Let's go to the this particular section of it, and let's go to the prerequisite and try to execute this, right? Sorry, yeah, this was what did we use? We use this one, right? Let us copy this, go to this and paste it here. Save this. Now try to execute this. So you see the value is undefined. That means the value is not defined. So the collection variables are the variable that are used within the collection, and the scope is limited to the collection where it is defined. We cannot use this variable outside the collection where it is being used. Hope you understood this. Another type of variable that is used in Postman are the environment variable. Before we get into the environment variables, let us try to understand what is an environment in context of an API. An environment refers to the different stages or setups where the API is being deployed and tested. These environments represent distinct systems or the servers where the different versions of the APIs are hosted for development and testing or the production. Why the environment is so useful? Because we cannot directly go and do some changes in the productions. In case of any enhancements or any defects, fixes, we will have to do it first in the dev environment, then we have to test them in the dev environment. Once we get an acceptance that the changes are working fine, then only we can deploy these changes to the other environments. The dev environment will be used by the development engineers for doing their work, and then they deploy their changes into the test environment, where basically the testers or the QA team will be perform the testing on those APIs, and after that it will be deployed into the acceptance environment where the business users are going to perform certain kind of testing. And finally, once you get a confirmation that this API is working fine, then it will be deployed into the production environment. Is nothing but the different stages or a setup where the API is being developed, and then it is being deployed, and then it is tested. So generally in any organization we have dev environment, test environment, acceptance environment, and the production environment. The environment variable in Postman are used to store the values that are specific to a particular environment, such as development, testing, or production. These variables allow you to easily switch between the environment without needing to manually update your request. In case of the user management collection, we have used res.in as an base URL. This URL is basically a production URL. Imagine that you have another server that represents dev version of this particular user management server. Then the base URL could be something like rec.res dev.in, right? So using a Postman, you can basically store these variables into an environment variable, and whenever you are basically trying to execute a request in a dev, you can basically switch your environment to dev, and you can use the request dev.in as an base URL. When you switch into production environment, this the variable the base URL will contain the value request.in. Let us see how the environment variable works in Postman. In case of Postman, you can see the environment variable under the environment section. Currently, we don't have any environment defined. That is why it says no environment. Let us click over here and trying to create an environment. Let us have the environment name as a prod environment. Under this prod environment, let us define an variable that is called as base URL underscore env, and the value is if I come here, this collection variable, take the value as something like this. Yeah, let us save this. Okay, and let us create another environment. There is already another production environment. Let us take the same URL, go to the production environment. Click on create a new environment, make it as test or dev. Let us give it dev. Say take the same variable and give the value as where is it here, give the value as, instead of this, let us give it as dev. Let us save this and let us try to use this, let us try to use it in user management API, and for this I have already created the request. Here I will be replacing the base URL with something called, so you see it is already showing an environment variable. Save this. Let us shift our environment to production environment and try to execute it, and we should get a response, proper response, because we should get a proper response. See, we got a response for an we got a detail of an user with an ID 2, right? His name was Janet, last name was Weaver. Okay, his image is this thing. Okay, okay. Let us try to go into a dev environment. Okay, let's clear the console first and try to execute this request. For the dev environment, we are using this variable as a what is the variable value? This is the variable value that is we are using. Basically, this server does not exist, right? It should basically give us an error now. Let us see whether it throws an error. Coming to here, try to execute this particular request and try to send it. You see, you got an error. Let us expand, try to understand what is an error. Yeah, it says that, so this particular endpoint is not found. Okay, request response hyphen dev, this is not found. So we are using the same the variable name, we have defined the same variable under two environment. When you switch the environment, basically you are getting the variable, the values, right? Different values. For the dev it shows when you switch to dev it shows as request res underscore dev dot in. When you switch to the environment as production, sorry, I will take out this one and try to execute this. In the request you see, yeah, this is a endpoint URL that is being used here, right? This is endpoint URL that is being used. And if I go back to the dev, save, execute, you get an error here because this is the endpoint that is being use. So this is how the value of the variable changes when you switch the environment. So the environment variables are very useful when you have set of APIs to be tested, okay, in different environment. Then you can create the same collection and you can reuse the collections by switching these environments to execute on different environment. This is how basically you can reuse your collection across the different environments. Okay. Another thing that I want to show about the scope of this environment variable. Environment variable is not limited to the collections. It is limited to the entire the workspace. You can come and see here under Trello API also. Basically, if you can go to one of the requests and to try to see whether this, just do an experiment, try to see if this variable is exist. You can see this environment variable we can also see in the Trello API collection. That means the scope of this variable is not limited to collection. It can be used across the different collection. Okay. Let us take it out. Basically from here I think we can do the Control Z. Let us save this. What we can do is let us come to the script here and try to retrieve this particular environment variable using a JavaScript. You can do this by pm environment dot get by the variable name. What is the variable name that we are using it here? If you see here, this is the variable name that you are using it. Try to go there. So sorry, so we don't need a bracket here, we only need this one. Remove this, within colon you can get, and let us try to print it here. Console dot log here under the prerequisite, and before this we can also do console dot clear. Save this, execute this. See, you see this, as a variable value. This is because we are using an environment as a dev. Let us switch this environment. Okay, let us execute this. So this is a value that we are getting. Let us say no environment. Send this value should be undefined because we are not using any environment. So you can in Postman you can click this particular icon here to see all the variables that you are using it in your workspace. So you see there are environment variables here, okay, and there is a collection variable that you are used. There are no global variables and vault variables. We will see the global variables in our next section. So you can click over here to see all the variables as I told. Then you can click to the environment section. It basically opens you the currently active environment. Here you can see the value. If you want to delete, you can delete from here as well. So if you want to add a new variable, you can add it here. This is how the environment variable is being used in Postman. Next category of variable in Postman is a global variable. Global variables are accessible from anywhere in your workspace, regardless of the environment or a collection that you are working. They are useful for storing the values that needs to be reused across multiple request collections or an environment. Let us check how to define the global variable in Postman. Go to Postman and click this particular icon. Then it opens up all the variables that we can use it in Postman. Come to the global section and click here to add a variable. Let us add a new variable called my name. Let's use it as test true. Let's save this, and we can use this variable irrespective of the collections, irrespective of the environments, right? For example, let us check this as no environment, for example, and go to the get boards and try to get this particular variable. How do we get this particular variable? It is basically using pm globals dot get, and what is the value that we have? Yes, this is the variable name, and use this variable name as a key and save this, execute. See, the value is test true. Let us change this to dev environment and again execute it. We'll get a same value irrespective of the environment, irrespective of the collection. The global variables has a very wide scope. The scope is to your workspace. The scope is limited to your workspace. Let us check this coming to here, which is another collection. Send this request. Yeah, basically this will fail because we have done an environment as a dev. Let us move to the production environment where this URL value is. Let us clear this, is a proper value. Environment variable we have set a proper value, and yeah, let us try to execute this. You see, we also got a name as a test true, right? This is how the global variable is being used. If there is a particular that the value that you want to use irrespective of the collections, irrespective of the environment at a workspace level, then you can set the global variable. Hope you understood this concept. In case of Postman, there is another way of accessing the variable or getting the value that is stored in a variable. This is using a built-in function called pm.variables. Before using the pm.variable, it is good to understand how the precedence is given among the collection variable and environment variable, and the environment variable and global variable. If you have a same variable defined at the environment level and the collection level, then the variable, the value at the environment level will be given highest precedence compared to the variable that is defined at the collection level. So let us see this with an example. For this example, let us go to the user management API collection, see the variable, and let us use this user ID variable, and it has got a value 2. Let us go and define the same variable for the production environment. Let us go to the production environment and give the value, define the variable and give the value as 15, and save this and come back to one of the request at the collection and try to execute this script pm.variable.get. The user ID is a variable name, and if you execute this, then you see the value is been given as 15 because that is coming from the environment variable, right? That is coming at the environment variable. So always when you have a same variable defined at the collection level and at the environment level, the environment variable will always be given the highest precedence. Okay, yeah. uh, so in case of the same variable name is used between the global variable and at the environment variable level, then also the environment variable will be given the highest precedence. This we can do uh, This we can check coming to the Trello API collection. In this API collection, we don't have any variable called the user ID, and let us go and define a global variable by name user ID. Let us add this. Let us take the same variable. Let us give the value as, here we will give the value as 1. Okay, and save this and come back and go to any of the Trello APIs. Yeah, this one, and let us try to copy paste this. So we are at the Trello API level. There is no collection variable, so there is only environment variable and global variable. Let us try to retrieve the value. See, you are again getting the value as 15. So we are also, let us clear this and go to this level. I think let us remove this one. Okay, otherwise it will be a confusion for us. Try to execute this. You see the value that is coming as a 15. So this is how the precedence is given. So the pm dot variable is used to get the variable value which is at the current context. Always remember, if the same variable name is used across the collection and at the environment level, always the preference is given to the environment. If the same variable name is used at the environment and at the environment and at the global variable level, then also the preference is always given to the environment. This is how the pm dot variables works. Hope you understood the concept. This brings the end of this video. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial on Postman variables. We explored local variables, collection variable, environment and global variables with hands-on example to deepen your understanding. If you find this video helpful, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Your support helps me create more valuable content. Thank you.